Hello, I'm Bettina Cornwell, and this is Finance in Sponsorship-Linked Marketing. So this is, as a starting point, about a brand platform, a communications platform where we have a sponsor like Verizon or BMW sponsoring something like basketball or Formula One racing, and they've entered into a contract. And the property, the sport art event, is the property rights holder, and they come together in a partnership with the brand as sponsor. Okay, with that background, let me say that this is big business. So sponsorship is about 60 billion, more than actually $60 billion worldwide every year. And to give you some basis of comparison, let me say that advertising worldwide annually is about 600 billion. So the interesting thing is that sponsorship is recorded according to contracts made that there'll be this relationship I mentioned. And so these are then leveraged with a leveraging ratio, usually something like 2 to 1. So there's additional spending for the sponsorship, typically in advertising promotion, and so there's some $120 billion worth of advertising that is directed by sponsorship. And if I was to add to this ambushing, where a company that is not a true sponsor but wants to associate with the event spends some money to do that, then the money that's counted as advertising is probably even more of it is actually related to sponsorship. So to say, this is really big business. However, you would think with all of that big business we would have a lot of very precise measuring about how sponsorship-linked marketing builds financial value for a brand. But no, some near half of all brands do not have systematic annual evaluation of sponsorship. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I have to say, it is messy. So advertising brings you something quite specific, where sponsorship brings you earned, owned, and paid media in combination, and it is challenging to measure it. So sponsorship is typically, historically, for decades, has been measured through advertising equivalence. So advertising equivalence is a type of measure where I'm finding this logo, the brand, in an arena, on broadcast media, and I'm measuring how frequently that exposure happens. I'm counting up those exposures and saying, well, we have 30 seconds of exposure. If I was to buy an advertisement in that very same program, what would that have cost? And I can understand my advertising equivalency. So that's all well and good. However, sponsorship is so much more than that. There's so many things that we can look at in terms of what's happening in sponsorship. We have brands, of course, that look at ROI, return on investment, especially sales, and ROO, and awareness lift, and other things. A lot of what has happened historically is actually being disrupted by digital media. And while we can still do these kinds of advertising equivalency for digital media, it is beginning to be a whole new world. Now that said, we do have some other indications of the financial value of sponsorship-linked marketing. And one of those I'd like to mention is event studies. So event studies consider an announcement of a sponsorship relationship, and on that day, what is the reaction of the stock market? Is it positive? Is it negative? Do share prices go up for that brand that's just said they're spending all these millions of dollars, or do they go down? And the tricky bit about that is there could be leaks in advance of the announcement, and there could be ripples after the announcement. So how do we capture this? In event studies, it's captured typically in 3 windows: a pre, a day of, and a post window. And in those event studies that have been conducted, oftentimes it is a mixed bag. So you have some positive outcomes, some mixed or neutral outcomes, and some negative outcomes. Recently, we've conducted a meta-analysis across a number of event studies. So in baseball, in Olympics, in all kinds of events that may have been sponsored. And across all of these 30 some odd event studies, what we find is that it's not so important that day of, it's kind of positive but not significant, not so important the day after. It is in the pre-event window that we really see the impact of sponsorship with a positive stock return to those brands announcing a sponsorship or just before they announce it. Okay, so this is currently our best evidence to say that sponsorship does have a positive financial impact. We need to do more here in terms of our measures at the brand level. This has been Finance and Sponsorship Link Marketing. Thank you.